Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the March 16th regular meeting of Council, and I'd first, as always, like to recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. The question period sign-up sheet is on the partition wall near the gallery, and if during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question relating to an agenda item only, would you please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet? And at the start of question period, I will call up those who've signed up to the podium to address Council. And the first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, and we have some. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. For late items this evening, Agenda Item 10G, Covenant Amendment Application Number CA11 for 6340 McRobb Avenue. We're adding a delegation from Oakley Duff and Bill Ouellette, as well as I believe there's going to be a discussion from Council regarding committees and task forces, Council committee and task forces, that will follow the Mayor's report, which is number 6 on the agenda.
Thank you very much. A motion for the approval of the agenda is amended. Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Bonner. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favour? Motion carries. Mayor's report. There's a number of smaller items that I wish to discuss first before I address what is probably on everyone's mind. The first is the application deadline has been extended for membership on the Council Remuneration Task Force. The deadline for applications to the City of Nanaimo's Council Remuneration Task Force has been extended 1 week to March 19th, 2020. This task force is to provide an impartial and objective review of the current remuneration paid to the Mayor and Council and provide recommendations for remuneration structure to be implemented by the fall of 2020. I would hope that there will be interested citizens who have the kinds of qualifications that are set out would in fact apply for this. It is an important process and one that should be participated in by citizens. The next item is a good news announcement, which many of you are well aware of, although in these times when sports teams are not able to gather and play. Nevertheless, Nanaimo is the home of the 13th West Coast Baseball League team. The new Nanaimo to be named club will call Sir Oxman Stadium home starting June of 2021, becoming the 13th West Coast League team. The Summer Collegiate Baseball League currently has 12 teams, including Canadian entries in Victoria and Kelowna. The Nanaimo team will be owned by the same company that successfully operates the Victoria Harbour Cats at Wilson's Group Stadium in Royal Athletic Park, Victoria. Jim Swanson is the managing partner and will oversee Nanaimo and Victoria operations. So it's good news for sports fans and good news for a city that has a long and significant history of sports achievement at many levels and in many types of sports. I'm also happy to re-announce what I hope has already proving to be and is proving to be quite a success, and that is the Get Involved Nanaimo, the new online engagement site that was launched. Residents now have a new way to share their point of view with the City of Nanaimo. City staff have been working behind the scenes, and I give compliments to all of them who've been involved, to launch a new online public engagement site, Get Involved Nanaimo. The site is now live, and residents interested in participating can register at www.getinvolvednanaimo.ca. As part of the launch, the City has set up some fun projects where residents can share their favorite things about living in Nanaimo and spark up conversations as well as ideas. This is an implementation of the online engagement platform supports, which was a recommendation from the Community Engagement Task Force report on public engagement. And the city has implemented this new online site, as I've indicated, and you can register to participate in discussions, surveys, brainstorming, and get involved in Nanaimo is free. Obviously, this city, as every community in Canada, indeed every community in the world, faces the worry of the coronavirus. COVID-19 presents challenges to every level of government, and insofar as the City of Nanaimo can do what it can, it certainly has been. I want to offer my compliments to staff who have been working hard over the last few weeks dealing with this issue. It is an enormous consumer of time and energy, and the city has now moved up to emergency level 2 as of today. As a result of the ongoing changes we see in the pattern of infection, but also working in conjunction, hand in hand, with the public health officer for the province, Dr. Henry, Bonnie Henry, yes, how could I forget? We have been taking our direction from her and her staff, and I think I want to reiterate the message that I gave this afternoon at a press conference, followed up by our CAO, Mr. Rudolph, Chief Fry of our fire department, Cameron Miller, the head of the RCMP, and our local MLA, who also spoke at the same time, and Mr. Harding, head of Parks and Rec. And the message is this, that we need to be calm and sensible in our reaction, that the city is taking the steps that are necessary, and in some ways, I would hope and believe that it will be an opportunity for the citizens of Nanaimo to demonstrate leadership amongst other British Columbians, that they will not resort to hoarding, that they will go out of their way to assist their neighbors and their friends and the people they work with and live near as they face particular challenges. I'm thinking of those in our community who face particular health challenges, challenges of poverty, illness, disability, whatever the case may be, who are going to require supports from their friends and neighbors in ways that we don't often think. And I am hopeful that the good people of this city will demonstrate once again that this is a compassionate community, that they will be willing to make the sacrifices necessary to get us through this crisis, that everyone will ensure that they take all the necessary steps of washing their hands with soap and water, which is exactly what the mayor did just before this meeting started, that you'll cover your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing so you're not exposing other people, that you'll avoid contact if you are unwell and stay at home if you are sick, and contact the Public Health Agency of Canada at 1-833-784-4397 or HealthLink BC at 8111 to speak to someone regarding COVID-19 if in fact you think it appropriate. The city has a very up-to-date website dealing with all of this, including the comments that have been made by city officials, including myself and as I say, the CAO and others. But it is important to recognize that we have undertaken the necessary preparations, but it also means that we are going to have to sacrifice aspects of what people regard as very important in their own lifestyle, whether it's recreational swimming, whether it's sporting activities, whether it's culture and community events, and the changes that we've had to make with respect to those. We're going to get through this. Some of us have family situations where the risk of potential death is higher than others. We need to be sensitive to one another. We need to be sensitive to the fact that many people are afraid, but we need to be sensible to the fact that hoarding will not do any good, that we need to be reaching out to people. I commented earlier today to Councillor Bonner, for instance, that if you've gone to the store and you've bought up everything you can see of one particular product, it means a whole pile of people are going to go to that store looking for that product, and instead they're going to shift their shopping someplace else, generally by way of motor vehicle. This is no time to be making life difficult. This is no time to be increasing one's carbon footprint unnecessarily. This is a time to think about others. Buy what you need and consume what you need, but do not hoard. And for heaven's sakes, please rely on the information that comes from the public health officer and from the city and government-authorized websites. This is not the time to believing every rumor or bit of gossip or innuendo or commentary that may appear on social media or other sources of information which you cannot confirm to be reliable. This is not a time for panic. This is a time for common sense. This is a time for sensitivity. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rudolph now to repeat what he earlier said today with respect to some significant closures and the practices that the city will undertake as we manage through this crisis. Mr. Rudolph.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will comment in a slightly abbreviated form of what was stated this afternoon. Firstly, the press conference that was held this afternoon on March 16th at 2 p.m. Is fully loaded up on our social media sites and our website, so anybody wants to see a more detailed accounting of what was said today, that's available to you. So since the get-go of this, from an administration point of view, staff at the senior leadership team level and its support, immediate support people began become entirely focused on this issue middle of last week and activated the EOC to a level 1 for monitoring and coordination purposes on March 12th. We subsequently established our ability to be very focused on all the operational issues that we need to maintain for the city. Our overarching principle and approach to this has been to adhere to and follow the direction from the Chief Provincial Medical Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry. So we've been attuned to that and following the advice of that. Last week was any gatherings of 250 or greater were to be canceled or not allowed. That was our threshold, and we, as such, maintained our service levels throughout the recreation centers in particular, knowing we were heading into the March break for the schools. We also had several conference calls with the school board late last week to coordinate our activities in that regard. So we followed the directives of the provincial government, and they were indicating that it was acceptable to continue operating this the way we did throughout the weekend. However, this morning there was a press conference again by Dr. Henry, and the threshold for that gathering changed from 250 to 50. Upon reviewing our operational ability to maintain that threshold, it was decided that any of the recreation centers that we have would be need to close, and we allowed for the remainder of the day to unfold so people could pick up their kids and that type of thing. So we targeted around 6 o'clock this evening for that to take place, and for the foreseeable future, that will be our situation with our recreation programming and centers that rely on those physical spaces. I would like to say that from a staffing point of view, all of our initiatives I would characterize as being proactive but measured, in that we are ahead of, and we're also anticipating what we need to do, and we're being very proactive, but we're being measured in making sure that we understand the consequences of these decisions and minimizing those unintended consequences, just so it's one step at a time. So today, for example, we were very focused on the process of dealing with the recreation centers and delivering a complete communication piece of work for you and the citizens today. So that was very much a focal point. And we've also had a briefing with council, and I think the mayor will speak to that in a moment, about additional measures that we may be contemplating in the foreseeable future. So I've mentioned now that it's 6 o'clock today. As from now on, the rec centers are closed. We have enhanced our activation level at the EOC from a level 1 to a level 2, which is just an enhanced level of attention to all the details that we are already working on. I'd like to also say that we are now contemplating the staffing and service delivery issues to maintain those in any scenario that may unfold over the coming days and weeks. So we need to maintain staffing levels. We need to have protocols in place that minimize unnecessary meetings between and within staff groups and between the organization and those that are dealing with the organizations. It's not meaning we're shutting down business. It means that we have to think of telephone calls, virtual meetings, and those types of things. We're working through that in an effort to prevent the unnecessary spread of any illnesses, that type of thing. The fire department itself is got its own comments with respect to this in terms of its particular rigor around accessibility to the public buildings that they have, and that they've stopped that from unnecessary non-staffing people going into those buildings. The police are looking at doing the same thing now with their entryway to the RCMP building. It's not to stop business, it's just to monitor and control the interactions that don't necessarily have to involve somebody coming into the building. And the threshold for first responders is quite a bit higher than it would be for other services at the city. So we have to be particularly vigilant to protect the ability for those functions like fire and police to continue to do their responsibilities. Lastly, just on an ongoing basis, we will be submitting and providing updates on our website, press releases. The mayor will be certainly in the lead of those initiatives to make sure that, and we will be supporting mayor and council here on and being very focused, both I think at the council level and at the staff level, on dealing with this particular crisis issue right now. And not to say other city business won't be taking place, but we have to pay particular attention and make sure our resources are deployed where they're needed. So that's all I was going to say, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rudolph. Much appreciated. The next item is the late item that's been introduced, and it is around the committees and task forces. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I'll just get to it, I would like to move that Council postpone all Council task forces and committee meetings, including Finance and Audit and Governance and Priorities Committee, effective immediately.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Brown, would like to speak to it?
I think it's very self-explanatory, but just to be quick, I think we're dealing with quite an unforeseen and sort of unprecedented circumstance with no known end date, and the impacts are also unknown. But the more we get ahead of it, while resources are being redeployed within the organization, and also the unknown impacts upon the organization, it just makes sense to streamline some of these items while minimizing social contact for those that volunteer on committees or those that may wish to present as a delegation or be present at committee meetings.
I want to say that we see this at the city as a necessary move in order to protect public health and safety, and not particularly, frankly, the members of council or their families, but the staff and the public who would normally and quite frequently do attend council meetings and committee meetings, giving of their time in order to enhance the quality of life in this city. We see this as an important public health measure, as Councillor Brown has indicated, but at the same time, we recognize our responsibility as elected officials to ensure that the good governance of this city continues through what we anticipate will be difficult times, but times through which we will pass and come out the other side in whatever timetable is involved. And certainly I think it's fair to say that, speaking on behalf of council, that council is prepared to take other measures as are necessary in order to ensure that governance continues, but in a way that recognizes public safety. Is there anything anyone else wishes to say? Mr. Rudolph?
Your Worship, just to reiterate the fact that council itself will continue to meet, and we will be transitioning the Finance and Audit meeting to a council meeting on Wednesday, and those will be held in this forum, as well as scheduled a council meeting for a special council meeting for next Monday. And that from henceforward, council will be having all the meetings and will be in a position to be briefed and make decisions on an as required basis. So it's just really pivoting and focusing everything at the council level at this time. And that's the only point I wanted to make.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bonner?
Thank you, Worship. I'm in favor of the motion. Even though our health authorities have suggested that we should be limiting meetings to not more than 50 people, and none of our committees are that much. The potential there is in the audience to reach that number as well. But I think that in the situation we are in now, we can quite effectively delay these meetings a little bit longer into the future without upsetting how things are working in the city. But I would still like to make sure that we do have our council meetings and more of them, I guess, as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. The next are presentations. Get involved in IMO. I hope Ms. Gurry and Ms. Frokie, I haven't stolen too much of your thunder, but
You did, but in the circumstances,
I apologize.
that's okay. And this presentation will provide a bit of levity under the circumstances. However, and it's timely in the sense that with people being encouraged to stay home and not be in areas of groupings of more than 50 people especially, this is the opportunity for everyone to get involved from home. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Faroki, as well as Tracy Lowen and Chelsea Barr, our communication and marketing specialist, and they're going to give you an overview of Get Involved Nanaimo.
Thank you, Ms. Gurry. I don't know if you guys can hear me perfect. Thank you very much, Your Worship and Council and Ms. Gurry. We are excited to be here to talk about Get Involved Nanaimo, but we're also kind of torn as to what is happening across Canada and the globe, but we also find it very timely. We're talking about virtual meetings, we're talking about social isolation, but also how do we connect people so that they don't feel isolated and they still feel involved. This platform allows for that, and I've got both Tracy Lowen and Chelsea Barr here with me, who have done an exceptional job. And one person that's missing tonight is Derek Johnson, who's also on my team. He couldn't be here tonight. We've talked about how this was a soft launch to help our community better understand how to use this platform. We're really focused on getting a larger audience and fostering an environment where there's more respectful dialogue, that people feel comfortable sharing their opinion, even if it's different, but it's done in a very safe and moderated environment, and that's what Bang the Table does through their platform, and ours is, we've utilized Bang the Table and launched Get Involved for that very reason. It's also a great way, as we mentioned, to really evaluate how this platform can help us over the next few weeks as you navigate some of these tricky and some difficult decisions you'll have to make, maybe potentially canceling some additional meetings down the line. Well, how can we utilize this online platform to better engage the citizens and for you to engage with them, et cetera? This platform also is a great tool for citizens who typically don't speak up during open houses or workshops, but they do feel more comfortable sharing what they have to online. And as you can see, we've got a list of some communities, just some on Vancouver Island and some in BC. Bang the Table is becoming BC's #1 supplier of online engagement, and I'll explain a little bit why in the following slides. Some of the questions that we have received is, what happens to this feedback? Well, the project managers for the various initiatives will then use the feedback we've gathered on this website and share it and use it to analyze in conjunction with the in-person facing engagement sessions and other activities that we're going to have. Then they're going to compile that and bring it to you for your decision making and for your review as well. Here's some fun stats that we got. Just 7 days of launching it, and this is a bit old now, but we've got more. We've got nearly 200 registrants. And what's different about this platform versus, say, Facebook, is that we're able to capture data that the planning department can use to see who throughout Nanaimo, like what neighborhoods throughout Nanaimo, for example, we're doing a really good job engaging with, which ones we need to do a little bit more, a better job of like connecting with the various networks, or like the chairs and whoever it is that running the neighborhoods. And you can see here, we can tell that the table shows which where the survey respondents have responded from. Some of the coverage we've gotten is pretty exciting for us. I mean, the fact that The Wave says that it's now one of their favorite, the Great Ideas section, which I'll get to later on, is one of their favorites. We're getting recognition locally and nationally. We're getting coverage, as I mentioned, just now locally and nationally and provincially. What's also interesting is that Bang the Table's executive team, once they saw how we rolled it out, I was told that they shared it across their network. So we had the CEO of Bang the Table looking at the instructional video, which Chelsea Barr played a role in, and our Get Involved Nanaimo site, which Tracy led the team on developing it, and so much more. And so it's been shared through their network even to the UK, and it's been shared socially through their LinkedIn pages. And so we're quite humbled by this. And I'm getting contacted by some other municipalities wanting to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. Now, this is the cool area for us, is the ideas section. Like, we've got people who are starting to put some thoughts together as to how to make, just suggesting like what things they'd like to see in Nanaimo, some of the favorite things they like to do. And I really love the story that we have under My Nanaimo Stories, that this particular one stood out, how they moved into a new neighborhood, they were nervous about it, but these two kids knocked on their door on a cold night, and they're like, hey, you left your keys outside your door, you may not want to do that. And I love the last line. It's like, shutting the door on the cold night, we were both thinking, welcome to Nanaimo, and there on the south end of Haliburton, we knew we would be fine. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Derek over there, who's going to cue up a video for you.
So let's hear it. Who wants to see a waterfront walkway that allows for bicycles, pets, and lovely evening strolls? Right? And who wants to see more complete streets built throughout our lovely and beautiful Nanaimo? And who wants to fill out this gigantic paper survey to let the city know about your ideas? Boo! Exactly. We need a new way, a more modern way to speak out and be heard. Set a course for the future. Engage!
If you're like me and feeling the pains of survey fatigue, but you still want to bring your voice to a variety of city projects, check this out. We call it Get Involved Nanaimo.
Get Involved Nanaimo is a new way to engage online with both the city and your Nanaimo neighbors about local projects and initiatives. It's safe, it's interactive, and it's easy to use.
Want to dive deep into discussion and debate on current issues and projects? Jump onto a forum.
If the city is doing upgrades anyway, I think the street is going to need bicycle lanes and raised sidewalks.
The idea is good, but that would mean only 2 lanes of traffic, not 4.
If more people are walking or on bikes, we won't need 4 lanes for cars.
Well, I feel like we need to incorporate more street parking.
Great ideas, but I don't think it will all fit. The street is only so wide.
Got an original idea? You can share it in our ideas section. It's like a virtual post-it note board.
A trolley running back and forth from Woodgrove to the south end on the old railway track? That's a great idea. Ooh, and dedicated rotating food truck spaces? I love it.
There's also a places feature for some of our projects, and you will be able to pin your ideas directly to your location on a map.
Ouch! Ouch! Ow! Ouch! Ouch! Oh, ouch! Ouch! Oh, I really got points on the last one. You want to switch boards with me?
With Get Involved Nanaimo, you can get interactive in our story section.
And the waterfront walkway project, they say, will connect the community together one day. It'll flow from Departure Bay to the ferry, then on to Maffeo, and south to the estuary. Yes, Sally, do you have a question? Or maybe a thought or an awesome suggestion?
I think if this walkway one day could be, then visitors will come from all over to see.
There's also a guest book feature, a Q&A section, polls, and yes, even the occasional easy-to-complete survey may pop up.
Name a popular social media channel that the city uses to communicate with its residents. Lauren?
Instagram.
Instagram. Can't say I've heard of that one, but let's try it out. Show me Instagram. Instagram was the number 2 answer. Marie, can you name a popular social media channel that the city uses to communicate with its residents?
How about Facebook?
Facebook. Okay, let's see Facebook.
We'll be posting themes, links, and other reminders on our social media channels, but you can visit our Get Involved Nanaimo pages and offer your insight at any time. Register now and have your say.
One little So big kudos goes to city staff who jumped in and helped us with creating this video. By us, I mean more Derek Johnson, who, as I mentioned, couldn't be here tonight. But an interesting thing that Chelsea just told me, that over the last few days, even today, people continue to register. People continue to do, whether it's a survey or submit an idea or a story. So we're hoping to see this grow even more so, and once we fully launch. So happy to take any questions.
Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. If you need help explaining any of that, we'll offer to give you a chance.
Very gracious of you.
My question is, I quite like the platform and always have. I'm at the beginning, when it was first set up, when you were making ideas or commenting on other people's ideas, I was getting a whole bunch of emails back. Have we sorted through that thing?
So thank you for that question, Councillor Bonner, through your worship to Councillor Bonner. There was a glitch, so we've contacted Bang the Table. They're on that. And the other thing is, if you're on the ideas section, so that people know that we've actually received it or someone's responding to their comment, they'll get a notification. Similar to Facebook, where you put a comment out and you see how many people have notified or made a comment by tagging you.
Mm-hmm. I just, one other thing, if I may, Quinn actually liked a lot of the ideas on the video. So we could go with a bunch of those.
If there's no one else, let me just say that I thought it was just first rate the first time I saw it, and even better the second time round. It's like fine wine, it gets better with age. That was brilliantly done, and a great way to welcome people to a new tool. Fabulous. Thank you to staff, everyone involved.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Council.
All right. The next is a motion for adoption of consent items. Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no delegations. And on to reports. It's the 2020 appointments to the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. So not unlike last year, if you all remember, we are required to have council appoint 2 members, or at least 3 members of council, pardon me, and 1 alternate to the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel for a term ending 2020 December 31. So this is a panel that reviews any complaints that are received, so it only meets if there is a complaint.
And the current members of the panel?
Councillors Brown, Councillors Hammonds, and Turley. Thank you, Councillor Thorpe.
And 1 alternate.
I don't know who the alternate is, Your Worship. And like I said, they only meet if there's a complaint.
I'm going to ask for a volunteer to be the alternate, Councillor Martman. And unless I hear objections or people's overwhelming desire to sit in a committee that no one really remembers or pays much attention to, not to disregard its importance to the administration of the city, but having said that, would someone move the motion with the names as indicated by Ms. Gurry, including Councillor Martman as alternate? Councillor Bonner, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Everyone appreciates a volunteer. The next is the Regional District of Nanaimo Drinking Water and Watershed Protection Service Amendment Bylaw number 1556.04, 2020. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. So this is 2 council meetings in a row now that the Regional District has put forward a bylaw, and I think there's 3 of them on tonight's agenda, where they require consent from 2/3 of their participants. So the City of Nanaimo needs to pass this consent to this bylaw this evening in order for them to reach their consent purposes at the Regional District of Nanaimo.
Moved by Councillor Hemmens, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? You've all read the material. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Rich. I just wanted to point out, we're not going to be probably having a lot of conversation on these relatively important motions because all of the conversation took place at the RDN. So it's just that we're not just posting them. We will get people inquiring.
Speaking up for the rubber stamps, thank you. No, Councillor Bonner is quite correct about this. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The next is Regional District of Nanaimo Regional Growth Management Service Amendment Bylaw number 1553.04, 2020. Ms. Gurry.
So thank you, Worship. Not unlike the last report, this is another bylaw brought forward by the RDN that requires your approval in order for them to reach their consent. And just to Councillor Bonner's point, so the Regional District of Nanaimo has forwarded the bylaw and all of its background material, which is attached to the agenda. And Councillor Bonner is correct. So this goes forward to the Regional District of Nanaimo. It's their bylaw, so you sit on that board as well. And now, as part of their consent requirements, it needs to come here for approval.
Thank you very much. Moved, Councillor Hemmens, seconded Councillor Bonner. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship, and sorry, Your Worship. I just will be voting against this. I actually think this bylaw introduces an additional tax burden that is redundant for the Nanaimo taxpayer.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brown. Thank you very much. The next is Regional District of Nanaimo Regional Parks and Trails Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1231.07, 2020. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. So, like the previous two reports, another bylaw brought forward by the Regional District of Nanaimo that requires your consent.
Move the recommendation. Second.
Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. The next is the Front Street Cycle Track Design Approval. Mr. Sims, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll ask Mr. Rose to speak to this report. He's been intimately involved with the project. As Council is aware, in November of last year, in 2019, you asked us to go back and revisit the plans with the residents and businesses along Front Street that were impacted. Staff have done that, taken several engagement sessions and meetings one-on-one with them. I do acknowledge the rather difficult plans, graphics that are in the report. We kind of wrestled with that one. This is the full design, and the motion was along the lines of seeking approval for the design. So that's kind of one of the reasons. We felt we could have put the original graphic that we had in there that just showed the cross section, but that wouldn't address. So we were in a bit of a quandary. So I apologize for not showing that so well. There's been significant engagement all through this project, and most recently, as Mr. Rose will likely mention, we've received quite a bit of feedback from transit, from BC Ferries and businesses along the route, including the Port Authority and, of course, Vining Sanini and Pacifica, the conference or the condominium unit. Should Council elect to approve the project or approve the design, and we can go into details, we would proceed with the project this summer. At this point, we don't have a diminished capacity in project or construction. So that's, of course, we're optimistic and we wish to move the business of the city forward. So I'll just pass it over to Mr. Rose.
Mr. Rose.
Good evening. So the report you have before you is with respect to the motion to seek final approval for the Front Street bidirectional cycle track. This was a product from the Downtown Mobility Hub project that took place through most of 2019. With that, there was significant public engagement at a community level. We had several open houses and pop-up events. We had online surveys as well as social media. This project came from that as a recommended action to enhance mobility within the downtown core. Through that process, we did anticipate going into a more fine-grained engagement with each of the projects that independently came from that, and so we have now progressed through that. Over the last 4 months, we've been working with the business, residents, and operators along Front Street. So this is as Mr. Sims mentioned, it's transit, emergency services, BC Ferries, the Port Authority. And so in working through the discussions with them, we've actually ended up getting letters of endorsement from transit, emergency services, and BC Ferries that we have included in our active transportation grant application. So that's all part of that. We've also had conversations with the businesses and the residents along Front Street. And the consistent theme from the businesses is that they actually would prefer the cycle track on the east side as we've proposed. It's providing parking closer to their actual doors, basically. The residences, specifically at 38 Front Street, are still would prefer the cycle track on the west side. However, having some fairly direct conversations with them and pulling some information on how they actually use the curb space in front of their property, we've been able to come up with a strategy that meets their needs and manages the curb space with the best balance for the community and for their usage. So we feel at this point we've come to a really good balance to provide a great facility, and are recommending to move forward with it for this year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. I feel like you were waiting for me.
Got to move something.
So I'm actually, you've obviously heard we've had feedback regarding east versus west. I'm happy with what you've shared and that the businesses support the east side development for parking. And I was really happy to read in the report the engagement that had happened with the residents at the tall tower there. My question still remains, we're investing a lot of money in what I think is really great infrastructure. I ride my bike along that section all the time, but we're still neglecting to make that crossing over Terminal really safe for cyclists. So in my mind, again, I think we're creating incomplete loops. And I'm curious, I know that there's a repaving going on along Terminal at some point. Is there an opportunity to connect with the province and say, this is not a great intersection for cyclists. We have cycling amenities coming up to, but not through. Could we work on some sort of something to make that intersection safer for everyone?
Your Worship, no question about it. This was, of all the projects that came out of the downtown for opportunities, this was, I think we called it the quick win right off the bat. So this is one where we thought we could get in and get a link that connects the new transit exchange to Maffeo Sutton and through over the Lions Gate Bridge north, and then south to the trails off Port Drive. That intersection that you've discussed is definitely a complicated one, and it is on our agenda of dealing with it. We've also are looking at connections over the Pearson Bridge, down through the Terminal Trench and around Comox Wallace to the Albert Street intersection. So it's one of those things where we've sort of knocked down the easiest things quick up front, and we're going to continue to progress through. To complete the loop and provide that full system that we talked about right from the outset.
Thank you. I hear the challenges, and I do want to say I'm fully in support of this. I think this is a great addition to our downtown cycling amenities. So I look forward to that kind of how do we connect this loop back in, and I hope that's a future conversation. Thank you.
Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move option 1.
Seconded, Councillor Gesselbrock.
And if I may, I'm also in support of the suggestions and option 1 as outlined by staff here. I think this would be a great part of our infrastructure, not only for now but for the future. One of the questions I had is where the bike lane crosses in front of a driveway or road. I've seen in other cities that they put flashing lights up that warn cars when someone's coming through with a bike. They're not necessarily to stop traffic, but just to warn traffic a bike is coming down. That allows the bikes to feel that they can carry on without having worried about someone coming out of a driveway or something, or a street. So is that something that we're looking at in the future for this thing? Because I don't see them on the plan. Not that I'm suggesting I don't need to tinker with your plan, I'm just curious.
Through your worship. So the approach we're taking is to use the green conflict paint that we've used in areas like Jingle Pod and on Bowen, and start with that as the sort of the eye-catching for drivers and for cyclists, that this is going to be a higher conflict area and that everybody needs to be more aware. We did have a discussion with the Port Authority about their access from the seaplane terminals about that, and it's something that we can continue to observe and adjust if we need to. It's sort of better to build up step by step as we see a need for it. So that's going to be our approach.
And one more, if I may, is further, I think, to Councillor Hemmond's comments. When I come down Cliff, I can actually go through Maffeo Sutton Park to get onto the walkway, which bikes are allowed on, but it's really hard to get from there up to the trailway, which, so do we have plans in the future to find a better way to connect those two?
Through your worship, we have a goal of finding a connection. It's a tricky network to weave our way through. There's a lot of challenges. We've got water courses, we've got rail, we've got high traffic intersections and limited space. And so it's going to be one of those things that we are working through it right now. There's no obvious answers that are economical anyway. So we're going to continue to chip away at it and figure out what the best approach is, and hopefully come back and have a plan for next year for the Comox Wallace portion of the work.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I still remain opposed to the east side. My other concern is right now we have no place for people to leave their bikes safely. So that's not being accounted for in the plan, so I'm really concerned about that. People are getting their bikes stolen on a regular basis, as we know and as we hear. So are we going to be looking at putting in secure bike facilities someplace?
Through your worship, we are going to be looking at creating end-of-trip facilities in the downtown as the system continues to build out. We need to identify these opportunities where space becomes available, and when we do, then that's when we're going to be able to look at what type of facilities they could be, as sort of straightforward as a conventional hoop, or as elaborate as some of the sort of doghouse style storage facilities they've got up at VIU. But yes, end-of-trip facilities are definitely a priority.
Thank you. And also, I'd like to know if we're going to be tracking the number of people that do use the bike lanes once they're established.
Through your worship, yes, we will be conducting counts to see the growth trends.
And just one thing I wanted to clarify too, because I did hear from some people that were concerned that they didn't see that there had been public engagement. And as I was reminded, there was lots of public engagement. It was on our GPC package of a couple months ago. So my apologies to staff because I didn't connect the two. That's what happens to me when they're so far apart. But there was lots of community engagement, which council was given the opportunity to review. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and thank you for your gracious remarks about staff and their work. Councillor Martman.
Thank you. Through you, just out of curiosity, I thought I had seen it somewhere, but I can't remember what the cost of this project is.
410.
Through your worship, the approved budget for the cycling was $400,000.
Okay, and I'm just thinking of the times and finances and how the city's being impacted. If we were not to go ahead with this project, that $400,000 that we've already budgeted for, would it be able to be used for other things, or is this targeted money? If I'm explaining myself.
That's capital.
I can't speak explicitly to what it could be used for, but I believe it'd be required to be a capital project, yes.
It's capital?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Hammonds?
Thank you. Yeah, quick question. In the discussion section of the report, it says the overall capacity of the road won't be changing. So we're going from 4 lanes to 3, but we're not expecting the capacity of the road to change. Is that correct?
More explicitly, we don't expect to see the effective capacity to be changed. So yes, we will be losing travel lanes south of Chapel, but we're already at 2 lanes north of Chapel. So the actual corridor itself is fundamentally it's a 2-lane cross section right now. So and the demand on it is far below that.
That helps, and I think that actually affirms our decision that this is a good thing to do. If we don't have, we're not interrupting traffic per se, we know our capacity is going to be what it is, and we're introducing cycling infrastructure. I think this is a great idea.
Sorry, I hit it too fast. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to thank staff for their efforts on this project and doing a pretty thorough consultation with the area. I'm excited about utilizing this road more effectively. I think it's going to connect the waterfront with downtown more effectively. And just as we slowly build out our roads to look like modern roads where there's an established bike network throughout the town, and we got to do it chunk by chunk, bit by bit, and I'm stoked that we identified the spot as somewhere that we can action quickly and as we move on with the rest of the process. So thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I sense I may be in the minority on this issue, but I have had a conversation with Mr. Rose and apologized to him ahead of time, and nothing personal, but this is a project which I cannot support and do not support. And I'd like to start by correcting a statement that I heard made earlier in our discussion this evening that the residents or businesses along the Front Street area support option 1. My understanding is very clear that they do not support option 1. It was their preferred option, the lesser of 2 evils, if you want to put it that way. So let's be clear on that. The residents would prefer not to see this project go ahead, and I do appreciate the amount of public consultation that has taken place, and I know that the residents of Pacifica have told me that they appreciate that as well, and they have actually very much enjoyed working with you, Mr. Rose. For me, I just don't understand the necessity of moving ahead with this project at this time, especially given the cost. I believe it will be underused and would not justify the expense. I believe it will, and I should say I do support our city's transportation master plan. I support the concept of active transportation. But in this case, I just don't think I can support this. I feel it will cause more blockages. I think it will impede traffic flow. I'm picturing a bus that has to stop and allow passengers to enter and exit across the 2 bike lanes while traffic is backed up behind it. I also look at the property, the old Tom Brown body shop property across from the Globe Hotel or where Katrina's was, and eventually, maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually that will be developed hopefully into a waterfront hotel, and I see big demands on Front Street if that should take place. And I don't think that a double-wide bike lane, not just a bike lane, a double-wide bike lane can be justified in that case. So to me, yes, it might benefit a small minority of commuters, but I don't think it benefits the majority of our citizens. And all factors considered, I'm sorry, but I just can't support it. Not at this time, anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was initially just going to say how great I thought this project was and thank staff, but so I will start off with that. And I would even be as bold to say as this was probably the best $400,000 we could spend on active transportation and in the downtown in general from what's been presented so far. Every engineer or planner that I talk to, some very, very distinguished, when they hear about this project are extremely excited. And it has been a long time coming for Front Street and has taken far too long, so I absolutely hope it passes. I just really feel I need to add that it's one thing to support in principle plans, but plans need to be implemented, and that comes with budget. This is an extremely, for the amount of road that is being converted into a bidirectional bike lane, which also takes up less. It's not the preferred design if you were to design it from scratch. It actually is a compromise to fit within a space and accommodate on-street parking and all those sorts of things. This is an excellent expenditure, $400,000 for the amount of bike lane that you actually get. It's in the long-term plans. It connects with, starts to connect some of the existing network. So I think it would be a great tragedy, actually, if this doesn't get passed tonight for the downtown design in general, but also a commitment to active transportation in Nanaimo.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
I just wanted to speak a little bit to Councillor Thorpe's comment about it not a large demand for this type of infrastructure. And I think that if we do really want to take seriously our goals in our active transportation plan of facilitating a modal shift to more ridership, we need to build safe bike routes in our town and a safe network. And this is what a safe bike network looks like. And we need more of them. And this is a great start, but it's a small start. And I think that as individuals use bike lanes like this and see that it is possible to bike alongside vehicles, we're going to see more and more of a shift. So thank you.
Councillor Hemmons again.
Third time lucky. Thank you. Also in response to Councillor Thorpe's comments. I agree that I think if we took a referendum today, the majority of our residents probably wouldn't support this expenditure, but I think as leaders of the community, our job is to look out beyond, and we have plans in place that say this is a value we hold, and so I think it's incumbent upon us to make decisions that align with those. And that's actually not why I wanted to speak, but just a general comment. With the new engagement platform, and as engagement becomes something that we need to take into account for every decision we make, I wonder if there wouldn't be an advantage to embedding in each of our staff reports another heading on engagement, to say this is how we spoke to the community, this is how decisions changed or not changed, these are the hits or whatever we had on social media as a result of Bang the Table, et cetera, et cetera. Just something to maybe consider when all of this is over.
Thank you, Councillor Hemmons. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you. I've been inspired to talk again because of Councillor Thorpe. And when I look at our when I look at our transportation plan, our master transportation plan, and I see that pedestrians and biking is at the top. The reason when people talk to us and say, "Well, this isn't working because you're not at the top, cars are at the top," is because we don't have the infrastructure for our pedestrians, we don't have the infrastructure for our bicycles. So this is building infrastructure not for next Thursday to whether or not a whole bunch of people are going to be using it, but for years and years down the road. And I can tell you right now, in terms of infrastructure and how long it lasts, bike lanes last a lot longer than cars lanes. So this is this is something for the very far future. I wanted to end on a good note, but it's...
If all battles were conducted in such a civilized pattern, what a wonderful world it would be. Councillor Armstrong.
I do have to support Councillor Thorpe, and it's not that I'm against the bike lane, I'm against the side of the street that it's on. I would prefer it to be on the west side. That was a big concern I heard from many of the businesses and from many of the people. And again, for the same reasons that you're going to have cars stopped. We're concerned about climate, but cars are going to be stopped even longer, waiting for people to unload, buses to unload, et cetera. So it's not that I'm against the bike lane, I'm against the location of the bike line. But I do agree, I think if there's a hotel to go in, it's going to be very problematic for them to get people in and out. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, car sales are still on the rise, and people in this community are still using cars a lot and will continue to use cars a lot. Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had to have a comeback after all these shots I've been taking. No, it's a good discussion, but I stick to my belief, and I'm sorry I can't support this. I just don't think it's going to be utilized. I was given the statement by somebody that if you build it, they will come, and I just can't accept that in this case. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. But again, I'd like to state for the record that I support improved amenities for cycling, for pedestrians, for active transportation, but I do not support those at the cost of impeding vehicle flow, because the reality is our city is growing tremendously quickly. We are going to have more and more cars on our streets, whether we like it or not, and we have to be able to handle them. I don't think this project, for the benefit that a few will gain, is going to benefit the city overall. So that's my final word on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Follow-up question.
And I,
Oh, sorry, you haven't spoken.
I do hope Councillor Brown will have the final word on this, or soon to be.
Very brief, Your Worship, to the comment that if you build it, they will come. You don't build a bridge by the amount of people swimming across the river. This is the type of city I think that we want to build. Has to be forward-looking, not looking to the past, and that is a vision that I'm absolutely committed to. And I think this proposal by staff, the quick wins, focusing on the downtown, is absolutely about building the city that our citizens deserve tomorrow.
As much as I am sympathetic to Councillor Thorpe's comments, coming from a generation where the car was king or queen, depending on your gender identification, let me just say that I think that staff has worked very hard on this proposal, and although I don't always think you should support staff on every recommendation, there have been occasions where I have not in votes around this council table, but tonight I can happily say I'll be supporting the staff recommendation. If seeing no further speakers, all those in favor? And those opposed, Councillors Armstrong and Thorpe, thank you very much for the spirited and friendly debate, councillors, once again demonstrating that good governance is alive and well in Nanaimo, coupled with a great sense of humor. The next is the Great Coal Strike 1912-1914 plaque proposal. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're going to stay on near Front Street for a moment, but for something completely different. We're seeking council's support this evening in the placement of a commemorative plaque at Dallas Square. The plaque itself, the proposed wording for the plaque, which is to commemorate the Great Coal Strike, as you mentioned, from 1912 to 1914, is on attachment A in the agenda. And included in that attachment is the proposed wording for the plaque and also the location as outlined in the report, which is right next to the existing 100 Years of Coal Memorial in the downtown. So again, here, as outlined in the report, the project is being supported through the BC Labour Heritage Centre, who is paying for the installation of this plaque, and if supported by council, it'll proceed with installation. Happy to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I'm looking to Councillor Gesselbrock.
Motion to move the recommendation that to obtain approval to install a plaque in memory of the that council approved placement of the proposed Great Coal Strike of 1912 to 1914 plaque in Dallas Square next to the 100 Years of Coal Memorial, as provided and paid for by the BC Labour Heritage Centre.
Second.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. Any discussion? Councillor Bonner.
Sorry about that. Just a question, who's going to install it?
Thank you, Your Worship. That would be done, completed by city staff.
Excellent, union people. I'm fine with that.
I was going to say I hardly thought there'd be much doubt about union staff installing this particular plaque, Councillor Bonner, but your profound grasp of the obvious is always appreciated. But let me just say, and I do want to say something, because I am no, Councillor Armstrong, I was not born then. I wasn't even a glint in my father's eye. He wasn't even alive then. But I do wish to say that I want to express my gratitude on behalf of the city for this proposal and those who are paying for it, the BC Labour Heritage Centre. This was one of the most significant aspects of British Columbia history after contact. Many will argue that the historic divisions between left and right and the often vicious nature of BC politics found its genesis in the way that that strike took place, the bringing in of troops. Many memories and people in this community are still scarred, and those stories are told around fires by grandparents and grandsons, or grandparents who were grandsons or granddaughters of those who were involved in that strike. And so it's only fitting that such a significant aspect of our history be memorialized with the placement of this plaque. So again, I want to express my thanks. And if there are no further speakers, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. The next is Covenant Amendment Application Number CA11-6340 McRobb Avenue. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. As outlined in the agenda this evening, this is simply for an introduction to Council. As per Council's policy, when there is an amendment to a covenant that deals with items similar to the application before you this evening, Council's policy is that goes back through a similar approval process as the rezoning. So if Council moves forward with this evening, it would then go to a public hearing before there's final decision by Council. So again, just being introduced to Council for your information this evening and to seek that that direction to proceed to public hearing. Your Worship, the covenant amendment would allow the project to move its existing building form, which has townhouses in this location, to move to a 6-story building design. The proposal, I would say, is consistent with the overall original concept plan that was done through the rezoning in 2004 and consistent with the developments that we've seen in and around this property in the more recent years. There is an attachment of the proposed sightline on the report this evening, and certainly happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gurry, I note we were to have a delegation. I presume they're not.
Yes, Your Worship. So my mistake, they had emailed to say that they were not going to be attending, but they wished you to receive the handout that you have all received, and that will be added to our website as a supplemental item tomorrow.
And I want to acknowledge for the public record that we've all received a handout entitled Submission to City Council Against Application CA 000011. Someone going to move? Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? Councillor, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank
How
you.
could I ignore you?
Well, that's hard, I know.
I know.
Through you to Mr. Lindsay, when was the traffic study completed? Do you know?
Your Worship, there was a significant amount of original traffic study when this whole block was laid out in 2004, and which resulted in a number of improvements, including Kalinda Road was built at that time, the internal road that services the majority of these blocks, that private road was constructed, as well, if I recall, the traffic light at Hammond Bay Road. There has been a recent traffic impact review completed. It's not indicating that any changes would be required at this time, but we'll continue to monitor that as future developments come online.
That'll be something I'm very concerned with because I drive that road every day and trying to get out onto Uplands from McRobb is virtually impossible some days. Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'll be supporting the recommendation as has been moved. But for my own information and education through you to Mr. Lindsay, because I don't recall seeing something like this before, there is zoning in place for what is on that area. The covenant just seems to limit the density or the height. And have we used covenants often to do that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, through your worship, Councillor Thorpe, I would say that in general, there was a period of time where proposals that were coming forward through rezoning were being secured by covenant. So if there would have been a proposal for a townhouse and a high-rise development, it would not have been uncommon for us to secure the development in principle as shown. So you're right, we do not see these often, but there are times when applications come forward that are proposing to either amend or adjust the use or density that might be secured through covenant, and Council's policy is that that should go back through public hearing. If it's a more minor amendment or to the covenant, Council can approve that without the public hearing. But in this case, it's staff's opinion that under the policy, the public hearing process is the proper way to proceed.
Thank you. I appreciate that information, and I will support the public hearing recommendation.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further speakers, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is development application number DP 1143-2338 Kenworth Road. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Worship. As you mentioned, this is for a development permit application on the subject property at 2338 Kenworth Road. Your Worship, these lands were rezoned in 2017, and the proposed development permit is in keeping with the original rezoning application, which is to allow for automobile dealership on the subject property. There is the site plan, which is attached to Schedule G in your agenda this evening, and there is an aerial photograph of the site under attachment G. There are 4 variances, Your Worship, that are outlined in the report, and I'm certainly happy to speak to those or answer any questions with respect to the development permit.
Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. I do have a question regarding the parking in the front. It's my understanding that that would be used for display of cars for sale. And this has come up before in a conversation on another place. Why are we calling it a parking space when it's actually a commercial space that's selling a car? And my second part of that is, if we designated a parking space, will they be able to actually park cars there?
Certainly, Your Worship, I can understand and appreciate the question. I think when we look at these development permits, we're also looking long-term in the future if there was a different use in that building. Obviously, somebody going in there, the site's paved, it's ready for parking. So at this time, you're right that the intention is to display vehicles in there, and I think you can make the argument that it's not a parking lot. But fundamentally, from a design perspective, from aesthetics, from just our simple application of our zoning bylaw, we think the best mechanism to move forward and make it clear is to actually vary this at this time.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship, and you may find this hard to believe considering it is an auto dealership, but I absolutely will be supporting the variance. Numerous of these applications have become before the design panel, and they all sort of struggle with these same sort of criteria that are hard for them to meet due to the nature of their business model. The design panel in general, the comments on this particular dealership was that great effort was made to really, the landscaping, but especially the building, to sort of make it not so car dealership-y and try to provide some uniqueness, but still considering the particular use.
Well, I'm glad to see there's a certain general consensus developing on this. Would someone care to move the motion?
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Gesselbrock, seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any further discussion on this? Considering we're all car owners around this table? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Rezoning application RA 449-5801 Turner Road. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, as you mentioned, a site-specific application for a cannabis retail store on the subject property. I think Council's now well familiar with the process. This is, as outlined in the report, the 22nd application that's been received since we've adopted our internal policies for reviewing these. Staff's comments are outlined in the report, but generally staff believe that the proposal meets with the existing guidelines and are recommending as such that Council proceed with supporting this application.
Councillor Gesselbrock, moving. Seconded.
No, Your Worship, sorry, you have to read this one.
I thought it was a bylaw that we got to read. Move that zoning amendment bylaw 2020 number 4500.174 to rezone 5801 Turner Road to allow cannabis retail store as a site-specific use in the CC3, that's the City Commercial Center Zone, pass first reading.
Second.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Opposed?
Motion that zoning amendment bylaw. What's so funny?
I wanted to say carried first before you jumped into the second one. But
Motion
carry on.
that amendment by law 2020 number 4500.174 pass second reading.
Second.
Councillor Martman, any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Motion that council direct staff to secure the amenity contribution prior to adoption of the bylaw, should council support the bylaw at third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is liquor license application number LA 142-940 Old Victoria Road. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is another item that we are not seeking council's final decision on this evening, but simply here to inform council that we have received an application for an amendment to hours, and we're now going to proceed with the public comment sheets, distributing them to the neighboring properties, and we'll return to council in the future for your consideration on this application.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lindsay. Item 11, bylaws, zoning amendment bylaw number 2019, number 4500.163.
Motion that zoning amendment bylaw 2019 number 4500.163 to rezone 5800 Turner Road to allow cannabis retail store as a site-specific use in the City Commercial Center, CC3 zone, be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Martman. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The bylaw status sheet is for information only, Ms. Gurry. And the next is notices of motion. Councillor Bonner.
I'd like to notice a motion that staff set up and implement a plan to wrap utility boxes in the city of Nanaimo as they become graffiti targets, that $30,000 be used from the Strategic Infrastructure Reserve, and that staff also seek external funding options that are being offered by BC Hydro and TELUS, if they exist, to help pay for the wraps.
Thank you very much. It's just a notice of motion, everyone, so it'll be brought up next meeting. Thank you very much. Any other business? Question period. I suspect we have no questions, Ms. Gurry. A motion for adjournment. Moved, Councillor Armstrong, seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Thank you very much, everyone.
Do you know this stream?
Hi, Leonard Krogh here. I'm here with Karen Lindsay today.